Absolutely. On page 4, Didmus, there's a story here. State projects worth 366 billion have stalled countrywide. This is as a result of austerity measures that were introduced by the president. But it seems like we could be working against ourselves in terms of we want to save, but at the same time, the Big Four agenda, of course, is something that the president has been very categorical, needs to be pushed for his legacy. But again, austerity measures affecting us.
Absolutely. Some of the presidential directives were given without proper consultation. When I talk about proper consultation, first it should be beginning with the people themselves, and also the various other players in the whole system. Mm-hmm. Because you see, when a government project stalls, not that stalls, but is being abandoned. I mean, that is not something good to go about, because it's a wastage of money. It appears as if that project was not viable. Feasibility study was not done.
Some homework was not done
properly. Was not done properly. And even if you look at the very many legal implications that are surrounding the Big Four, housing and all those the deductions from Kenyans where various trade unions have resisted. They are saying they're not going to allow it. It was done again because of a lack of consultation. Anything that comes out of the pocket of a wananchi, whether you call it whether you call it a housing fund, is some kind of a levy or a tax, and the Kenyans are bound to resist, and we are running out of time. To me, as a member of parliament, as a legislature, I think the Big Four agenda will be a flop, because it is slowly being overtaken by the calls for a referendum, and we are now almost half of Uhuru Kenyatta's remaining term. Mm-hmm. And unless if it will be a continuation of whoever will take over from His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, because we have no time completely.
Do you feel that a referendum is something that Kenyans can or need right now, or possibly we should shelve it? Kenyans
are the owners of this land. They are supreme. They are the ones who have all the powers. As enshrined in Article 1 of the Constitution, they decide what needs to be done. As a person, what we need to do is we need to prioritize what is important for this country. If the referendum is equally important to this country, then let's have it. If a referendum is not important, or it can be done later on, or it can be done as an extra ballot during the 2022 general elections, then we will be able to do it. So all these things are important. They are conjoined together. But let us first try to analyze what is important that the Kenyan needs before we can begin now to move forward.
All right. And Honorable Kira, do you feel that the Big Four agenda is at risk of not being implemented, given the kind of headwinds that the government seems to be running into, one of them being that austerity measures? Secondly, there is a call for the referendum, and of course that has its own unique issues by virtue of the fact that it will cost taxpayers. We don't know if IEBC is well instituted and prepared to hold a referendum, and also the politics that surrounds it.
Yes, my worry runs in these two parallel dimensions. One, the Big Four can still be adjusted, and we achieve them at a certain modicum level. We may not achieve 100%. And in any case, it is not a must that we must get so many houses. But if we are to do it progressively, it can be staggered over a period of 10 years. My worry is one, that some of the projects that have now been started and abandoned are going to be more costly than if they were to be completed, because unless they are properly terminated. Because a project that would have cost, call it 100 million, and there is already somebody on site, and he has been mobilized, let's say with 20 million, with the passage of time, that project may end up being $1 billion worth, or it may take $1 billion from the exchequer in terms of penalties, lack of performance, in terms of the government component, and this is going to be a waste, money that is not going to do anything. I know of projects like the one at Parliament. There is a crane that has been lying there for the last 2 years, and that crane alone can easily buy 10 cranes.
And does then that
And
just,
nothing has been
doesn't
done.
that just speak to total disorganization and lack of foresight and planning? Because even if the project has been stalled, then withdraw the crane. Maybe it is being paid, maybe it's hired.
It is hired, and the contractor, you see, the contractor just needs an excuse to have some material on site. It can be a wheelbarrow, it can be a pickup, it can be an old car, and all that will be quantified as material on site. And that crane must have really cost a fortune to Parliament, unless it is properly terminated. And as you terminate, you must pay certain penalties. So this is why this coordination of government, to me, is something so important, that we coordinate, we know where we need to terminate, we terminate, and we close that chapter, then we can restart later on. Otherwise, the exchequer may end up paying, apart from the external debt, apart from the domestic debt, they may pay another component of money that is going to individuals, to enrich individuals at the expense of the taxpayer.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to just about 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and we want to wind up our newspaper review. But do stay with us. We do want to get into State of the Nation, and we're going to be looking at a number of things. And let's start off with a promise, or something that the Deputy President said, and this was an interview